Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to be doing languages of Shenzhou. So, in as you can see, in each four of these places are going to have different languages because, like here on Earth, we got a whole bunch of different languages, and then we got dialects, and then we got nonverbal languages. So, these people need a way of communicating. In my shorts, the languages aren't going to be used in full, as in, like, I'm not going to be saying everything in the languages that I created because they're going to be fake. And I feel like it's going to be a little bit hard for me to follow as well as you guys. So I might just throw in some, like, slang that belongs within their language. This will make sense a little bit later in the video. So, this was the idea that I came up with just on the fly. So I don't have all the languages set up yet, especially not dialects. So today we're just going to be doing Cyprus Moorland and Shelly Caspin. Then next video we're going to be doing Celeste Something and Miyuki Scotty. Manselladium is going to have a mix of all of these languages. Kind of like, it's going to have a pidgin language, kind of like Cantonese or PSE for a sign language, and stuff like that. So, once again, came up with these ideas on a whim. So, I don't have my normal binder with me. I did it all in this tiny little notebook that I have. So it might be a little bit hard for you guys to see what I'm trying to show. So I'm going to do the best I can to, like, verbally explain it or display it with my hands, or just try and, like, put it really up close to the camera. So basically how I determined what language each place is going to be based on is based on different countries on Earth, such as I use Canada, Japan, the US, and Russia. And then to the side, and the reason why I chose these ones specifically is because they've all been to space. This will come into play later, why I'm doing this based off of, like, space stations and stuff, because that's part of the lore of this place and how it was made. I'm going to eventually do a video on that, I just don't know when. But basically, I decided on what language you're going to be using and what country they're going to be based off of, based on how many times they've visited space. So Canada has only visited space, if I'm remembering correctly, like 6 times. So Cyprus Moorland's going to be based on languages within Canada. The reason why I chose Canada specifically for them is because they've visited space the least out of this list, and Cyprus Moorland is the least technologically advanced. So it would make sense why. So with them being the least technologically advanced, it kind of goes together. Then for Celeste Something, I'm using Japanese, and it's going to be based on, like, languages in Japan, like Japanese. Said that backwards. Because Japan only been to space 10 times. So, once again, the people within Shelly Caspin. Okay, so to restart, Shelly Caspin is going to be based on Japan. Reason why is because people in Japan only visited space 10 times, based off of NASA. This is all coming from NASA. So with that being said, people in that empire are, like, more technologically advanced, and they're a little bit smarter than people in Cyprus Moorland, but they don't have many resources. So that's why I'm basing it on Japan. Then now Celeste Something. they're going to be based on the U.S. space station, like NASA and SpaceX and things like that. The reason for that is because the U.S. has been to space the most, 169 times. Probably no more by now, but we've at least visited space that many times. And Celeste Something is the most advanced, technologically advanced place, so they're going to have that. So then, last one, Miyuki Skadi. They're going to be based on the Russian space station. Russia, if you know any history about like space and stuff like that, and like space travel, the US and the Soviet Union, which included Russia, were in like a race to get to the moon. And so, which caused Cold War. So they were both like competing to get there. So it's logical that Russia would have also a high amount for how often they visited space. They visited space around 63 times. So, and that makes sense for Miyuki Skadi because they are still technologically advanced, but a little bit less than Celeste Something. So now that we got all the like general ideas out of the way, we're going to go into Cypress Moorland and how I did their language. So basically how I based each of their languages is I did alphabet for them, then took some slang from the country I'm basing them off of, the country language that I'm basing them off of, and taking some slang from there and then translating it into this whatever language I came up with. So first with Cypress Moorland, I started with Cypress Moorland first. I just started with normal alphabet like A, B, C, D, the normal stuff, just to give myself an idea, because Canada, their main languages is English and French. And if you're from Canada, you already know this. So, Canadian viewers, I'm from the US, so I had to do some research. But I just started with the basic alphabet, the English alphabet, since both French and English alphabet are very similar. Then I decided I'm going to flip and invert the alphabet. So, like, if you can see here, A is now upside down, B is going left instead of right, C is backward, Z is backward, Y is upside down, so W looks like an M. So I just flipped everything and inverted it if I couldn't flip it. Next, to include French in there, I did the phonetics of French upside down. So like A, B, C, D, U, F, and so on. Like I did the phonetics of it because my thought process for this is Cypress Moorland, the people in there aren't going to be the brightest compared to all of the other places. They're going to be really curious, but not the brightest. So they're going to use the phonetic alphabet because when they're actually spelling things out, it's going to be easy for them to pronounce because it's just sounded out. You have to sound out everything. And as long as you know how to sound out things, you're good. You know the language. And I also wrote that inverted, so that was a brain teaser. That was really interesting to write out. And then that's basically my final thing. Their alphabet basically is inverted letters of the English alphabet, and then written in phonetics. So it goes A, B, C, D, U, F, Sh. Like it goes the normal way. And it's still in normal order. So it's like A, B, C, D, yada, yada, yada. But then I also did like common phrases that are used in Canada, such as, and Canadian viewers, correct me if I'm wrong, I had to do some research, but something common would be like calling someone a beauty, or a toque, which is like a hat, or like a beanie sort of thing, or a toonie, which is like, they have, I don't know if you guys still have this, but at some point you had 2 cents, so you would call them like a toonie or a loony. Um, and yeah, so basically, how it would be translated in Cypress Moorland's alphabet, it would be pronounced Besa. Beauty would be pronounced Besa u te gret. So that's how you say beauty in Cypress Moorland. Because also, another fun fact about Cypress Moorland, their alphabet's only going to be uppercase. They have no lowercase alphabet. Once again, they're not the most intellectual, so they're just going to do the easiest thing that people can learn like that. And you guys also have to remember, they have the biggest population because they are focused on breeding out imperfections. So it's easier to just teach them like the basic sounds and then having one alphabet. So that way everyone can just learn it quickly. So yeah, beanie's pronounced Besa te Greta. And then toque is pronounced Teuku. I sound like I'm speaking K-fan. And then toonie is Teu-i se. So, yeah. Are they all technically pronounced right? No, but that's the phonetic version of it. Then, now we're going to be moving on to, what's it called? Shelley Caspian. I know the names of the empires that I've created. Yes. So this one I had to do a lot of research on because unlike Canada where they have French and English, I know English, I'm speaking English. I've been in a French class before, so I knew the basic alphabet. And the alphabet is letters. Meanwhile, since I'm going off of like languages that Japan uses for the language of Shelley Caspian, Japanese does not use letters. It uses like the symbols and stuff. So with that being said, and if any of you are watching this from Japan or know Japanese, comment what you think. I had to do some research on like how am I going to translate this in a way that makes sense. So I did some research, and Japanese is actually based on a few other languages such as German, English, Chinese, Portuguese, and Korean. So the more you know. And the reason why Japanese is so hard is because, especially with writing, is because Japanese did not have like written language until like they started copying Chinese symbols. So the more you know. But yeah, they also have like 3 different types of like alphabets per se. They don't have like actual alphabet that we have here if you're in the US, but they have like 3 different types of alphabets per se. So the first one is like native Japanese. The second one is, I forgot the names of the two. The second one is a mix of like Chinese versus Japanese, kind of mixed together. And then the third one, which I'm going to be using, is, hopefully I pronounce this correctly, katakana. Katakana is basically taking like foreign words, like English words, for example, and putting them into Japanese. So this is also a phonetic way of saying things. If you can't already guess by now, I chose the phonetic way because I like how things sound and also give a little bit of like a voice to my characters, like something unique. Also, these creatures, once again, I'm gonna keep mentioning this, really want to be like humans. So I think it would make sense if they would do the phonetic versions of things, because that way they sound more like humans rather than doing like letters and stuff, if that makes any sense. Anyways, so I first wrote out like all the symbols / sounds for katakana, which goes a, ka, sa, ta, ha, ma, ya, ra, wa, I, ki, shi, chi, ni, hi, mi, ri, u, ku, su, tisu, nu, fu, mu, u, ru, e, ke, se, te, ne, he, me, re, o, ko, so, to, no, ho, mo, yo, ro, wo, no. So yeah, a lot. There's like around 40 something in there. And then if you want to see, I don't know if you guys can see very well, but these are all the symbols. Yeah, this is a lot of symbols. So I'm going to be using like how it's pronounced. So also another thing that I'm going to be incorporating in Shelley Caspin's language is they focus on like beauty and stuff. So they're going to want to emphasize things. So they're going to be using a lot of doublespeak. So if you're not a linguist, what doublespeak is basically when you're over-explaining things, for example. What's a good example? I am making an announcement versus I am making informative speech. Like, one sounds more formal / like fancy versus just saying, I am making a speech or I am talking. So they're going to use a lot of double speech. They're going to use a lot of bigger words. And then another thing I'm going to incorporate, because I had to make this more complicated on myself, I'm also going to incorporate Mandarin, one of the hardest languages to learn. Why? Because Mandarin uses some similar things to Japanese as well. But the main thing I'm going to use is tones, because tones can change the meaning of a word. And I feel like people within Shelley Caspin are going to focus on the tone a lot more rather than how it is for Cypress Moorland, where they're just trying to focus on like basic sounds. Shelley Caspin are going to focus on like the flow of things, and Mandarin is a very flowy language, so I feel like the tones would make sense. So example of tones is basically got flat line, got tilt line, got like a V kind of line, another tilt line going this way, and then a dot. So I don't remember the exact definitions of each one, but basically they're supposed to show like how the tones are. So if I use like a, for example, from the Kakana version of Japanese, it can go ah, 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 and just ah. So you hear the difference. So each one would mean a different thing, depending on how you use it. So, in other words, so when you put together in written form, basically you would be using katakana with tones of Mandarin, and then to add a little bit of emphasis, since they like putting emphasis on things, every first and last letter is uppercase, and it can be throughout the whole sentence. So then I got some Japanese slang as well. I wish I wrote down the definitions of the slang, but we got quingua. I wish I practiced this. Jing. Basically, we got some slang like we do with Cypress Moorland, where you got toke and stuff like that. So, and a lot of the slang that like my characters are going to be using, like Marina, for example, the princess of Shelley Caspin, she's going to be using this slang a lot. And basically a lot of these words are going to be like, ooh, you're pretty, or ooh, I don't like you. She's going to be very sassy. Speaking of Marina, because of her condition, if you remember, I'm pretty sure it's called deface. Basically, she has, and if you remember her design, she has basically like a rash going down her body, and it's a decaying like rash. So if you remember from my previous video with her, and like I'm talking about her, I have made this made up disease called deface, or defacing, or something along those lines. I do not have my notes on me, so forgive me if I say something a little bit wrong. So at the beginning, when I was making this map, if you have sticked around for this long, I spun a wheel, and I got for like what weather I wanted. So I got Mercury. Mercury is highly poisonous. Mercury poisoning can cause like reddening of skin and things like that, and decaying. So, with that being said, defacing is kind of like mercury poisoning. She has that disease, and that disease is fairly common in Shelley Caspin. So, since it's decaying and it's on one of her sides, it covers her ear and like half her throat. So with that being said, she's hard of hearing and also like mute, or it hurts to speak. So, and other people within Shelley Caspin, since it's a common thing to have because they're near a river, so they're more exposed to the mercury, are going to have this disorder / disease / mutation more. So, with that being said, they also need a nonverbal language for those that have the rash near their throat or around their ears, who are hard of hearing, deaf, or mute. So, you'll be seeing Marina along with her father. They're going to be using a type of sign language. So, I also had fun with this. I am currently learning signs, so basically sign language is not universal. So basically what I did was I made my own type of sign language for Marina. She might be using like a few different things. So she's going to basically be using pigeon sign, which is basically where you're using normal vocab and then signing it. You're using English vocab and signing the words. Finger spelling, which is like A, B, C, D, like just spelling things with your hands, like you're going to be spelling the signs. Or something that I created is called motion braille, which is basically like, you know how blind people can feel like braille on a wall, that like the little bumps. Basically what she would be doing is she's going to be making the bumps with her hands. She's going to be like dot line or something along those lines, and then it will be like spelling it out. And this is also for people who are deaf that might want to watch my videos. Marina's supposed to give a little bit of representation to you guys, along with me practicing my sign language. And also, I want to create accessibility, and it makes sense for Marina's character, since if it's a decaying thing, she's going to need a way to communicate. So I feel like it would be fun to make her hard of hearing and needing to sign. So, in other words, basically a recap, Cypress Moreland uses the French phonetic alphabet that's uppercased and flipped and inverted. Then Shelley Caspin uses Kakana for their spoken language / writing, Kakana with tones of Mandarin, and every first and last letter is uppercase. And then for non-verbal languages, they use pigeon sign, finger spelling, or motion braille. So that's it for this video. Next video, we're going to be focusing on Celeste Something and Miyuki Scotty. I put a lot of effort into actually coming up with these languages, so hope you guys like them, and hope I see you next time. And we're going to get that lore video out sometime, I promise. So, bye!